because this piece is 7 feet long, this would be a good opportunity to show you the advantage of having some sort of a rail on your fence so that you can attach this type of thing. These, I normally use these for the router table, but sometimes they're helpful for the table saw also. These aren't specifically designed for that. They're just called stock guides, but they do work for sure, and they're very, very nice to use. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I use these on this particular material, because this is a long piece that I'm going to be running, and I've got several more to do, so might as well. So you can see this slot goes about 1.5 inches or so. Let's call it 1.25 inches beyond the track. So that gives me plenty of room to get the bolts through, and that helps a lot. But what you want to do is you just want to look at that feed direction, and there's an arrow pointing that way. So that's the direction of the wheel. You can't go backwards with the wheel. You can only go one way, that way. If I try to go backwards, it won't work. So that's really cool for the kickback. Then now, as you can see, these have plenty of room to overlap over that blade. So I can put them like that, right? And that would be great. However, when I do this with long pieces, I like to just spread it out a little bit more, because ultimately you want a lot of pressure as you're bringing it in. You want that piece to be relaxed as you're coming across. So I'm going to go ahead and put it like that, and that's pretty good right there. So push down a little bit just to get a little tension on it. These aren't like feather boards, so it's a different, it's a different system. They don't have a lot of give. They just have barely any give at all. But I really like the knurled knobs, because you can get a nice solid feel on these guys. You really can crank them down. Okay, now even just trying to pull it out, it's really hard to do that. So you can definitely pull it sideways, but it's not easy. So now as I go like this to feed it, it will have pressure there. And so as I'm bringing this in, I don't have to worry about this piece lifting up, right? As I'm pushing it or lifting this guy up, this is a pretty heavy piece, and it will pull it towards the fence, because the wheels are just canted just a little bit to the right towards the fence. Okay. Now, doing little pieces is a lot easier than doing an 8-foot long piece that weighs about 30 pounds, but with the leverage hanging off of here, it's a totally different animal. So you need to have a really strong fence. Ultimately, what's going to happen is it's going to literally like push up right here, and it could cause this whole thing to just lift up. So we don't want that to happen. We're going to hold it steady and bring it through. And of course, whenever possible, I put that down. So this is a great option for people that are especially working by themselves like I am. It's definitely helpful. All right, let's fire up the dust cloth. were great. Absolutely, 100%. They're really nice to have. Back wheel, make sure both of them are spinning, because if they're not spinning, then you're not actually pressing down. And that wheel needs to press down nice and hard. Otherwise, it's not putting down any kind of pressure. So I didn't need to provide any assistance when doing this, except for keeping the piece up here, just kind of moving it. But as far as like downward pressure and pressure to the fence, I did not have to. So I just naturally put my hand here and help it move along. But really, these do a remarkable job. So this is absolutely really great to have. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to show this today, because I think some people need to understand the benefits of having first this little track in here, because without that track you have to kind of make your own, and this, to be honest, this is a really inexpensive tool to have, this accessory. And yeah, these work great. And you can see now, if I come in here and start pushing this in and I'm not quite up against the fence, this piece, just because of the nature of the wheels, will actually pull my workpiece. Like, I'm trying to push this straight back and keep it away from the fence, but let's see what happens. I can't keep it away from the fence as it wants to pull me towards, you see that? I'm going at an angle because it's angled, and eventually I touch the fence. That's it. What's nice about that is that now it's really hard for me to pull it away from the fence. So as it goes through, I have no pressure on it. So this guy here, that last little bit is releasing the pressure right as it passes through the last little bit of the saw. So just as a word of caution, you want to make sure that your downward pressure ends right when that saw blade ends, because you don't want there to be a bump in it, especially if you're not really pushing down very hard. So if this guy were further up, there would be a problem. So make sure for sure that you're having that. Okay, now for the router table, using these clear-cut stock guides, for the router table, they're just as nice as they are in the table saw. There's not much difference. So you put them in the same exact way, and you orient them the same way. You look at the direction, the feed direction, so you know that's the direction you're going, right? Because I can't go backwards. I can only go one direction. So you want to make sure you get those straight. Now, as far as the downward pressure, you want that to be somewhere close to the router bit, right? But you don't want it to be directly over the router bit. I would rather it be a little bit away. So it's more like that. So now when you feed it through, you want this pressure to be grabbed before the router bit, and then you want it to be continuous after the router bit, so that there's no bump in the whatever profile you're doing. So if I do this, I can set it up very easily just by pushing down, lock this one in first. So this is the locking one, and this is the tilting one. So you can raise this up. With this locked, you're able to raise and lower that. So as your pieces get thicker or whatever, you can change that. And just push down, with a little bit of a tension, that's all you need. And then this is the same way. So lock this one down, and then, you know, adjust that to whatever you want. So just like that, a little bit of pressure. Now you want to test it to make sure that there's movement on both wheels and it's consistent. So as I feed this through, I'm grabbing that one, and then this one starts to spin also. And then when this one stops, I still have pressure down, so I don't have to worry about this piece bumping because of lack of pressure. And that's it. And now, of course, it's going to pull it towards the fence because their wheels are tilted towards the fence. And I'm not even doing anything except for pushing it forward. It's doing all the rest. So definitely a very nice thing to have for the router table as well. And I'm going to go ahead and run a couple pieces. All right, let me show you how I make that cut where you've got the this type of situation where you've got these little pieces that you need to cut. What I'm going to do is actually take essentially a push block, the same thickness as this. Because of my guides, I want to make sure I go under the guides. So I'm going to go ahead and route that with a push stick, making it secure for me. And I don't stop it, and I just make it all the way through. I just go through like that, and the wheels are holding it down, but I want to make sure that I keep firm pressure on it to keep it square to the fence and from not wanting to go in. Now this is a really small opening, but you can see the advantage of having it like this. So I can just feed that through. It's much better than trying to feed this by hand, right? When you try to do it like this and have control of that with such a small piece, bad things can happen pretty quickly. So you get a bad cut. It'll tip into the area a little bit. All it needs to do is tip in just a touch. And let me show you. So if I go like this, feed it through, and if I don't have anything pushing here and I don't use absolutely perfect pressure, as I go through, I could actually cause this piece to just ever so slightly go in, and it's going to mess my cut up. I'm going to end up with a little divot in my cut. And also on the way out, if I'm not careful, I can tilt it. So